Hello. Welcome to the first of this podcast series. My name is Annette, and this is my sister, Mary Ellen. This is really in efforts to highlight her experience and her wisdom in free birthing. Some would say radical free birthing. Would you like me to introduce you?
Sure.
So my sister is a wisdom keeper and a huge inspiration for a lot of women. Maybe you already know her, actually. Maybe you've heard of her superpowers in so many different ways, and she really represents like the primal, I want to say primal, instinctual lifestyle in so many ways, but she recently had a baby 10 months ago and did it completely on her own without any medical advice or interference from traditional medicine, I would say, and has birthed a really beautiful baby and had an orgasmic, ecstatic birthing experience. So she's really here to help inspire other women to tap into that life force and tap into that instinctual knowing themselves. And inspire that, because I feel like that's a huge awakening for our collective right now, and it's really needed. Anything else you want to say about who you are as a person before we start talking about why free birthing?
I think that's...
You gonna hold it?
I think that's a good start.
Okay, so let's take it back just for a little bit of context. Me, my sister, and my older brother, we were all born at home. So we were kind of the freaky kids. There's a siren happening in the background. But we were kind of the freaky kids growing up, of like nobody else that we knew was born at home or had really heard about that. So when it comes to you deciding to free birth, we know that that was already kind of a natural decision for you. But what would you say to... These sirens right now
You
are
might not
so
be able to hear
loud.
them.
Okay. What would you say to someone who wasn't born in this kind of, with any awareness of home births or free births? What would you say to someone who's maybe curious about it, can hear and conceptually understand the benefit of it, but is like has no idea that that's kind of even possible for them?
Well, that's a great question. I think it's important to first distinguish the difference between a home birth and a free birth.
Can you talk a little bit closer to the mic? Yeah.
A home birth is traditionally something that happens at home with a medical professional, whether it be a midwife, most of the time a midwife. A free birth is considered a birth happening at home without a medical professional. So yeah, I had my baby at home with just me and my husband, and it was incredible. It was an incredible experience for both of us, for all three of us. So for those who may be interested in a home birth or free birth but don't necessarily feel like they could do that, I think there's a few aspects of the experience that people face. And the number one is the safety aspect. The other one is believing that they can do it, or that they may feel like they need somebody else to birth a baby.
Well, let me ask a question here.
Okay.
So you said the difference is that free birthing is no medical profession or no medical professional there, versus home birth, you would have a midwife. So you chose to not even have a midwife. So
Right.
Can you explain what, like the more nitty-gritty details of like why you chose to not have any external influences, even if it's a midwife, which we think is more homeopathic or natural, why you chose to not have any external influences as a part of your birth.
I chose to, from my own experience, which is really a way that I live my life, I just chose to take full responsibility for my birthing experience. And I did what I needed to do to learn everything I needed to learn, to meet whatever outcome was possible, right? So I educated myself thoroughly on, all the different possibilities of what could happen in a birthing scenario. And if I needed help, I had people who I could reach out to. If there was some sort of emergency, I knew that I was only 10 minutes away from the nearest hospital. But aside from all of that, I really saw birth as this opportunity to step so much more fully into my authentic self-responsibility and and really claiming the power of my experience, because at the end of the day, no one is birthing the baby but the mother. No one, they say that like doctors deliver babies, but they don't deliver babies. Mothers deliver babies. And then there's just somebody to receive them.
So I love this. I think that we're really getting into the meat of this. When you say that you chose to not have a midwife, not for necessarily any fear mongering or conspiracies around Western medicine, I think that you respect midwives and doulas and people that, even doctors. I think that you definitely respect them. But what I hear is that you really honored this as an initiation and a rite of passage into becoming a mother, awakening your primordial instincts. In that, of course, yes, you could have had a professional there, but you chose to really go through this on your own because you chose to trust yourself that you could do the hardest thing in your life. And just if you can carry on this of like, how do you feel like going through that initiation, really turning on your instincts, has continued since you are now a mother in your postpartum journey?
That's a great question. I think what I really tuned into in my birthing experience was that nothing outside of myself could save me. Nothing outside of myself could birth my baby. And the act of birthing was actually this journey of coming so deeply inward and surrendering in an inward way to the opening of my baby coming out, that like nobody else could do that besides me. So it instilled, it activated, it awakened this like such powerful just like deep responsibility, like that I am the one in charge of this reality. And so going through my birth experience in that tone, and coming out in a successful way, having a gentle, easeful, like beautiful birth, it just kind of continued into my postpartum experience of realizing every time I came up against challenges, whether it be that my baby was crying all the time or I was facing some sort of challenge, I could call upon that same strength I found in my birth experience to awaken that remembrance that I am here, and it's all about how I'm choosing to see my reality, and this another level of self-responsibility for how I'm creating this experience.
Yeah, so you're really talking about an inner shift that happened for you, of your will, of your self-perception, that really got a huge upgrade through really only relying on yourself. And you've told me time and time again about when you were birthing, there was a thought in your head of like, oh, I can see how women would give up their power in this excruciating pain and get the epidural, or, want to go put the power into the doctor or look for something outside of them to alleviate the pain that the threshold that they were crossing.
Right.
So let's draw a parallel of like, what do you think it looks like when women are, in the more medicalized industry, and they are in that threshold moment, and they opt out for either the epidural or, the C-section, or in that
Some sort of
specific
intervention.
birthing process, and they opt for an intervention. What energetic pattern do you feel like that then plays out in postpartum? Do you feel like there's a correlation there? Have you seen that at all in any of your friends or people you know?
I feel like we live in a world of not only instant gratification, but also seeking answers outside of ourselves and seeking power outside of ourselves. So really this is all about like, this is such a spiritual journey. Truly it is. In terms of like finding the power and the God within ourselves rather than outside of ourselves. And so when we're in situations where we're under tons of stress or pain, or what we perceive as pain, it's easy for us to like look for the quick fix, to seek something to alleviate us. But in my birthing experience, I found that when I actually leaned into the pain and I allowed it to consume me, and I used my breath to open that pain, to create spaciousness within that, I tapped into a deeper and deeper and deeper layers of my power. So when we translate that into, the ongoing postpartum experiences of facing like new edge after new edge after new edge of learning how to care for a new child, a new baby, and how to be a new mother, I feel like it's, we really, it's the initiation of learning how to draw from that inner strength, and the torch we receive as we pass through the natural birth portal is the light that keeps the tunnel lit in the dark times of postpartum, and it reminds us of our inner strength and our power, and how we can transmute any experience into our fullest desires. So I'm not going to dog or shame anybody who chooses to have an epidural in the hospital or choose a different route of natural birth. But what I am, I guess, speaking to is that birth, natural birth, physiological birth, is the greatest invitation of a woman's life to step into her fullest, most exalted power.
Yeah, and the transition from maiden to mother, and really going through this phoenix moment, this threshold of pain and suffering, and I want to give up, I want to give away my power,
Yeah.
and that's a very like maiden not naive, but again, this is not talking about like outlier circumstances or situations, but I would say, we'll talk about this in another episode about how like this could be such a more common experience than people I feel like automatically write off birthing as like it's gonna be challenging, it's gonna be painful, you need to have a medical professional, etc. I digress. So yeah, this first conversation is really just about the threshold, I think, of the archetypal shift, and how when you don't rise to the occasion of your birth, um, you're missing a very important energetic puzzle piece that supports
The rest of your life.
the rest of your life, and especially the postpartum days, where there are going to be moments where you want to give them the iPad, or you want to give them the things that like that you don't want, how you don't want to raise your kid,
Yeah. Or that you just want to give up. Yeah.
Yeah, you just want to give up.
In those moments that you want to give up, or you want the moments that you want to give up, or have someone else save you.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many moments like that. We're met again and again in the postpartum experience. But those are the moments that we graduate into our greater spiritual incarnations through the journey of motherhood, of meeting those moments with our expanded and elevated selves, rather than the contracted and victimized,
helpless
selves. And it's about choosing. It's a challenge to choose, because
motherhood
way.
is so instinctual.
Motherhood is instinctual, but also, we live in a very confusing world. So it can, our instincts can be very muddled, and it can be confusing on what to do. And I remember even facing moments of like, I'm not sure, but those, when I faced those moments, I eventually came around to the realization of drawing from within rather than finding the answer without. And something that always brings me through is the journey of remembering that everyone before us, all the women ever before us, have done this for however long humans have existed, and if there were animal precursors, then however long they've been doing it.
I feel like a common now newer conversation with motherhood now is like that a lot of moms and parents in general are like afraid of birthing kids into this world, sometimes because of social media, technology. We're just on a completely new frontier in so many ways than we ever have been before. And so, like it really takes a lot of inner strength and fortitude to be able to even discover what your values are, but then hold your values, which I believe is at the core of every mom. It's like wants the best for her kids, and wants her kids to be connected to the earth, and to be natural in as many ways as it can. Like, I don't know anyone who wants their kids to be an iPad baby or whatever, but it's so easy. And, maybe that's just because of the circle and lifestyle that we're in, but I feel like it is so easy to lose some of the fortitude and the will that you have, and kind of give up to like how crazy the world can be and the conveniences of the world in postpartum and in motherhood. And so the beginning of this conversation really is just about how having let's call it an instinctual birth, right? Having an instinctual birth really sets the tone.
One other thing I would like to mention that was super supportive to me in my physiologic, natural, unassisted birth was birth and continuation of that in motherhood has been to create a supportive environment around me, because I really do believe that we are products of our environment. So, even before I became pregnant, I was surrounding myself with women who believed in physiologic unassisted birth, who believe in the ways that I wanted to live my life, so that I was supported by the people around me, and also creating, my home space to be supportive of the things that are most important to me, like rest and calmness. And that's, I think, an element that is really important to also consider as you're traversing the journey of going into birth. I was very adamant about not speaking about my experience to those who would object or who would impose their beliefs on me, because I was wise enough to know that I was sensitive in that time, vulnerable in that time, and subject to influence. So I was very strategic about the influences that I was also around.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what this conversation is really about, is really helping other women who are interested. This is not to push beliefs on anyone, but for women who maybe are slightly curious or interested. Like you said, it's so important to surround yourself with people who believe in your vision, who will hold your vision, who have, whether they have experience of it or not, and birthing is like the most vulnerable process. Pregnancy, birthing, postpartum, mother, is so vulnerable, and there's so much conditioning out there in ways that we can be influenced by other people and their fear and their stories. So the point of these conversations is to give women a sanctuary, for their pregnancy and their journey with that, of like being inspired and knowing that what's possible, and having a space to tune in to this style in this belief system. Yeah. So
I gotta go. Baby's awake.
Baby's awake.
Ta-ta.
So that's the beginning of this podcast. This is just the introductory conversation. We're both really excited about it. I am not a mom yet, and I'm not even pregnant, but I feel really passionate about this. Like, it is coursing through my veins too. So let us know if you have any specific questions. Like I said, my sister she's done so much research and has so much lived experience of the natural instinctual way of life. So we're going to be drawing that information out of her one episode at a time. Let us know if you have any questions specifically. And our next topic, we'll get into some more specific questions around maybe prenatal care. Yeah, we'll get into more specifics. See you later.